Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome back to the 2024 Radical European Championship. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is Aaron Smith, and in the virtual production hall, we have our old buddy, Luis Araya. Tonight, we head into Brands Hatch for the 10th round of the season. And now, considering I've got a Brit alongside me in the commentary booth for tonight, I feel like it's going to be a little bit redundant for me to mention how iconic this track really is, because it's not really my place. So, Aaron, I'd like to pass things off to you so you can talk about this old school, ever historic, and yet always fun racetrack.
Well, sure thing. I mean, Brands Hatch used to be a home to me. I think it used to be about 20 minutes from where I used to live. So going there was a frequent occurrence. Knew a lot of people that used to do a lot of track days there. It's probably one of the more popular track days in the UK. And we've got, I think, 10 tracks that you'd say are fairly famous. But this one is probably the big one apart from Silverstone. Most people know this track. It's just a get in and go track. It's not too tricky. It's just one that everyone knows, everyone enjoys, and especially in these radical cars. We come here almost every single season, it seems. Always provides good racing as well. Fairly short as well. I think it's only going to be about a 1 minute 20 odd lap time. So should be good nonetheless. The racing itself might be a bit tricky. Only a few overtaking opportunities around this track. You'd probably say into Droids turn 2 and probably turn 5, turn 6. And that's kind of it. It's quite difficult to go side by side around here. Lots of high speed corners. But like I said earlier, very, very fun.
Yeah, this track is an absolute blast. Now, Aaron, you have a decent amount of experience covering not just this series, but these cars running around this racetrack. I remember well back in the early spring of 2023 when I was getting set up to join Apex Racing TV. As someone who had never done any broadcast before, I had to review, it was round number 11 of the, at the time, Radical Racing Challenge, and it was you and our old friend DJ Clark on the call for that broadcast at this very racetrack. I remember specifically you pulling off a very unfortunate commentator's jinx against a driver. But anyways, talking about the racing action that we're going to have here, you are correct in your assumption, Aaron. Lap times around the 1 minute 19, 1 minute 20 barrier, with Christoph Lipp currently the fastest in this 50-minute long practice session, which is coming to an end in just a couple of moments' time. We've had some fantastic races so far this season. Kicked the season all the way back in February off at Monza, running without the first chicane. That race was a slipstream fest. Then we had to Sebring about a month after that. Watkins Glen for the third race of the season. Then we went to Interlagos, Barber, Road America, Alton Park for the Americas Series, which I usually broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. We went to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca on July the 14th. However, for the European Championship, I think it was about 2 weeks later that y'all went to Silverstone for one of the latest rounds of this season. And then about a month ago, the series rocked up to Phillip Island down under and put on some pretty good racing. And I think now, in terms of talking about how long we have left in this season, only 3 races including the racing action that we have from tonight, I think it's probably a good time to touch on the championship point standings, Aaron. And considering that you've been with this series for a little bit longer than I am, I've been on the American side of things, you've been on the European side, I want you to talk through this incredibly close championship fight.
Yes, it's been very, very close, especially the last few rounds. It's been genuinely amazing. It was a bit dominant in the first few rounds from Christoph Lipp, but really over the past, I want to say 4 or 5 rounds, it really has kicked off. And every single race just keeps getting more and more interesting. And especially with the point system that we have in this championship, it does just reward consistent finishing, and you just got to be there all the time. Like drivers, like James Barry, who is joint first up at the top. He's not necessarily been amazingly quick throughout this season, but he's just always finished at least within the top 5, top 6. Whereas Christoph Lipp has, I think he won 6 odd races, 6, 7 races, but he's about 15 points off now, unfortunately, and he's just lacks that consistency that the 2 ahead of him have got.
So those are the Pro Championship standings tied at the front. That's absolutely ridiculous. I think that may be one of the things that the European Championship has beat over us on the America side of things, which is going to be broadcasted later on tonight, also on Apex Racing TV. Here's the AM standings, and it's Brit Adam Locke currently at the front, 189 points on the board. A little bit farther back is Gabriel Berger in second. Dorian Lievre going to round out your top 3 in the AM point standings. And it should be noted at this point in time, with 3 races left to go, I believe the maximum amount of points that you can score is 99 points. 99 points and 99 points only. So these drivers starting to fall out of championship contention, but still Adam Locke and Gabriel Berger going to give us a fantastic championship fight between now and the end of the season. Really what Adam Locke needs to do tonight is just keep it clean and keep it up towards the front in the AM category. So those are your point standings coming into this 10th round of the season. Touching on the schedule that we've had so far, we'll touch on the schedule that we have remaining, of course, tonight at Brands Hatch with the usual format, a 15-minute long sprint race followed by a 45-minute long feature, and then in a couple of weeks time, 3 weeks to be a bit more precise, the series is going to be rocking up to Spa-Francorchamps for the second to last round of the season. Then we're going to round things off on October the 13th at the Nordschleife. It was the track where I did my first ever Radical official broadcast and first broadcast at all, for that matter. And Aaron, you remember that because I had no cameras throughout all of that. I pretty much went into that broadcast completely blind. But still, we're now in this qualifying session, stopping ourselves from spinning yarns about old broadcasting stories. We're in this qualifying session now. These drivers starting to hit the racetrack. What do you think these drivers really need to keep in mind when it comes to this qualifying session?
Just being up there, to be honest, especially when you're sort of drawing towards the end of a season. You just want to be there, be in the championship fight, and especially for those top 3 in the pros, it's going to be super, super important this qualifying session. The AMS always seems to be a little more unpredictable. You get some drivers who are amazingly quick one week, fighting for, top 5 overall, and then the week after that, they just seem to struggle. So you kind of see where the differences are between the pros and the AMS. The AMS can be quick and can sometimes match some of the pros on occasions, but the pros, of course, are always going to be there, always competing at the top. And the AMS, of course, just lacking some experience here and there, but it's going to be interesting to see who's going to end up on top this time. And, in the AMS, it's, like I said, just a complete dice roll. But in the pros, you would probably put your money on Christoph Lipp. He's rapid in qualifying. It's just sometimes in the races where he's just lacked that little bit of extra pace.
He was actually the fastest driver in the practice session earlier on. Unfortunately, we couldn't broadcast that practice session here on Apex Racing TV. However, he was the fastest, just barely over the likes of Andres Friedrich and James Berry, who ran it at the top 3 in that practice session earlier on, and we're following James Berry in that 10 car. He is blisteringly quick in these Radical SR10s off the back of winning the official series championship for Season 3 here in 2024. Currently at the front of this qualifying session at the moment, over Lip in P2 and Andres Friedrich in P3. Lots of drivers already setting in these qualifying times. Of course, as some of these viewers have probably noted thus far on this broadcast, single car qualifying, so these cars aren't on track at the exact same time. Well, they are on the track at the same time. However, they aren't sharing the racetrack. They all have it to their lonesome, getting clean air, which in these incredibly aero-sensitive Radical SR10s will make a world of difference. But as these drivers chuck this car around this racetrack, trying to make sure that that front splitter is as close to the ground as humanly possible so you don't lose all sorts of front grip and probably end up in some sort of barrier. These drivers setting some pretty quick lap times, and they're about to come around for round number 2 of the lap times going up on the board. And touching on the AMs, this man Adam Block is currently the fastest at the moment.
Yeah, Adam Locke has been quick pretty much ever since Silverstone. Comes across the line and seems to have gone a bit on the wayside on that lap, maybe an off track somewhere, and well, of course he'll get another go. As James Barry up at the top, Sorensen up there, and not seeing him too often. Up at the top, Lip seems to be a little bit struggling at the moment. He's not setting his usual blistering pace, 3/10 off of James Barry. Maybe James has been here a couple of times in real life. I'll have to ask him after the race to see how many times, if at all, he's visited Brands Hatch, as he is a Brit. It's an immense possibility. But Kyrikopoulos as well, up in 5th place, another driver who we haven't seen too much of so far this season. But the gaps are a lot bigger than I thought they'd be, to be fair. It's about a second covering the top 7. But considering it's a bit of a short lap time, there's not too many corners where you gain that much time around here. It's a bit surprising to see the gaps this big.
Lastly, Aaron, I think the main reason why there isn't, the field isn't as close as we probably had in mind coming into this race is just because as much as there isn't a lot of time to gain through the corners, there's a whole lot of time to lose. And in these Radical SR10s, usually takes a whole lot of time for these tires really to get into a good operating window. Very greasy out of the pits, very cold out of the pits, which is going to play a big role in the starts of the 2 races that we have for you this evening on Apex Racing TV. But in this qualifying session, it is playing a big role in these drivers trying to decide which ones are the fastest and which ones are the best to light up their tires. And look at that from Christoph Lip jumping up to the top at a 1:19.062. That's even quicker than the time he set in the practice session earlier on. So that was a stormer of a lap from Christoph Lip behind the wheel of that 704 car, the German. Very, very impressive. We'll have to see if the likes of James Berry, Andres Friedrich, or even Lasse Sorensen for that matter have any sort of way of countering that. That was a stormer of a lap time and much quicker than any lap times from the practice session earlier.
Well, some drivers do save their best up until the last moment, and well, Christoph Lip seems to be doing exactly that. And perhaps maybe focusing on practicing on his race during the practice session, which would mean that maybe he's a little bit more prepared going into this race. And honestly, that 15-minute opening race that we've got, we've always said this, it's kind of just a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a warm-up of what you're going to get. The 45-minute race is the one you really want to, send everything at. It's a lot more tricky. The strategy gets involved, and drivers like James Barry have taken advantage of that. And like I said before, even though he may not be the quickest, Barry is an absolute master when it comes to saving fuel. Christoph Lip coming across the line for the final time in this qualifying session. Doesn't look like he's improved on that lap, so there's only a couple drivers out there who really have an opportunity to usurp him. And, well, one of them is your current championship leader in the pros, Andreas Friedrich. It's about 14 points between himself and Christoph Lip. They're both sharing the same country, of course, so that should be an interesting battle. And, well, Lip definitely has been the entertainer so far this season, but Friedrich has just stayed cool, stayed calm for most of the season, just been there when it mattered most. And, well, he's reaping the rewards at the moment as well. He's leading the championship.
I mean, he certainly is. You can't knock being in the lead of the championship with only 3 more rounds to go. 6 races in total here from the Radical European Championship left between now and October the 13th when the season comes to a close. But really, when it comes to the 3 Pro Championship contenders, you've got 3 completely different stories. You've got Christoph Lipp, who blisteringly fast in these Radical SR10 races, but he's also wildly inconsistent as well. I remember a recent official broadcast that I did here on Apex Racing TV back in Season 3. It was right before the race at Phillip Island. He ran into some difficulties and actually crashed on lap 1 in that race's broadcast. Actually ended up getting beat by one of the Americas drivers that we have later on tonight here on Apex Racing TV, who's also contending for a championship. But Christoph Lipp, he is fast. I remember doing an official broadcast with him when I believe I saw his very first appearance here on Apex Racing TV, and he was up towards the front. He was battling for the win from lights to flag. He is a very fast driver in these Radical SR10s, but the inconsistency with this season comes back to bite him. Only 12 races to this season, and bearing in mind you have some pretty big breaks as well. The mind games play a big role as well. If you're kicking yourself about a mistake that you made and you have a month to stew in that mistake, that's going to do you in mentally for the next race of the season. But Christoph Lipp looking to try and turn around his season, have a real fighting chance of winning the championship, currently at the provisional pole, and with really nobody out there on the racetrack outside this man Sally Ryden from Finland and Craig Gregory from the UK, I think it's looking very good for Lipp to grab yet another pole position from this season.
Yep, not too much of a shock there. His qualifying place is genuinely something to behold. And well, it's going to be another pole position to add to his tally of a very impressive season. As Craig Gregory comes across the line, doesn't manage to improve, unfortunately, so stays in 16th place, and that's going to be sick for him overall in the ARMS. Probably not where he'd want to be, as Adam Locke up in 6th place as an amateur driver. Gabriel Berger as well up in 9th. It's been a very tricky qualifying session for some of these drivers, some struggling a lot more than others.
Is certainly the case, and here is the starting grid from that tricky qualifying session. Christoph Lipp grabbing the pole, James Berry going to join him on the front row, Andres Friedrich in third, Lasse Sorensen going to be starting this race alongside the German championship leader. Then we have Dennis Kyriakopoulos in fifth, Adam Locke, the top running AM driver, in sixth, Kim Andre Björklund in seventh, Jorge Gonzaga in eighth, Gabriel Berger in ninth, Alexander Scaret going to round out your top 10. We'll briefly scroll through the rest of the field. I can hear the revs building with this field there. You can see the rest of the starters. Mats Jestrenbakken going to be starting this race from the pits, serving a penalty that he picked up from race control, but I believe not a whole lot of time left to go until we grab the green. One unique feature about this Radical League is that we have standing starts to worry about, so we don't have a whole pace lap to go through the entire field. Trust me, I've been there on the Radical Americas Championship where I completely blow out my voice trying to go through the starting grid with these drivers. Quite trigger happy to line up on that starting grid. Speaking of, most of the field already set and ready to go. Just a few more drivers waiting to line up on that starting grid. There's Dennis. He always has a little bit of a reputation for joining late on the grid for some of the official races, so kind of living up to that a little bit there. I actually have to say that with Mats Jestrenbakken starting this race on the pits, we actually have a little bit more time until we get this race ready to rock and roll. 15 minutes long. Don't have to worry about a pit stop unless you get into some sort of major drama. Won't have to worry about that at all. Of course, I have seen some drivers in this series have some issues entering the pits here at Brands Hatch. That's going to be a big factor in the 45-minute feature that we have coming up later on. And of course, there's no trickery here. There's no reverse grid or anything like that. The finishing order from this 15-minute long sprint race is going to set the grid for the 45-minute feature coming up later on. But nevertheless, the field ready to get things up and rolling. The lights are about to go out, and then the field is going to be in the hands of our front row sitters. A green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. That's a pretty good start from Christoph Lipp. He's going to be leading comfortably into turn number 1, and Locke dropping down the running order a lot. Lasse Sorensen dropping back as, well, actually, no, that's Larson, my apologies, dropping back a little bit. You can see the rest of the field battling hard, making a little bit of contact, heading into turn number 2. These drivers battling oh so hard at the beginning of this race, and that was Kim Andre Björklund making a little bit of contact, I believe, with Andres Friedrich heading off into turn number 2. That's a good braking zone, Aaron. You mentioned it earlier on in this broadcast how that may be a very good overtaking opportunity that these drivers try and use, but as the field head their way onto the back straightaway the first time by, it's Lip over Barry, over Sorensen, over Kyriakopoulos, with Andres Friedrich, the championship leader, having a torrid start, running at your top 5, and that's a huge wreck going down the back straightaway. DeGraff involved in that, Robertson, Reitinen, that was a horrific incident going down, and look at this, that is, I believe that's Matt Jestrenbakken, who started this race on the pits, probably very happy that he started this race from pit lane to avoid all that drama, careening their way down the hill. That was a huge wreck at the beginning of this race, and it has shaved the field nearly into a 5th.
Honestly, that reminded me scarily of Johnny Herbert's big accident, what, in the early 90s? That was almost identical. As they all just came through there, as that's Larson's SR10 looking, well, worse for wear there. He's missing a front end, and his front right suspension is gone, mate. It's just not being a car anymore. I didn't really see what happened there. It looked like two cars were kind of trying to squeeze each other on a straight, and I think it was Leliva who was one of the cars involved in that. Of course, we're going to get a replay in a sec, but I mean, that was just absolutely insane on this first lap. But also just like to mention, there's people probably heard me exclaim, "Oh no," at the start. That was because Friedrich, I think he nearly spun off of the start. Barry came to cut him off to make sure that he didn't get through. And I think Friedrich wasn't expecting it and nearly half spun the car, just about managed to keep it on. He's 2.5 seconds off the lead now, lost a few places. And, wow, this has just been a hugely chaotic start here at Brands Hatch.
Absolutely has, and credit where credit's due to Andres Friedrich for keeping that car going in a straight line. Of course, with the standing starts in this series, really tricky to get these race cars going in a straight line. Believe me, I have dealt with that pain. I remember one time starting an official race, I went from 4th to 1st by turn number 1 at Oulton Park, which, bearing in mind, is pretty much just like 50 feet. So these drivers really having a whole lot of trouble trying to get these race cars up, rolling, and ready to rock and roll for these races. And as we follow Adam Block tailing Gabriel Berger, these two drivers running P1 and P2 in the AM category, I think we'll take a look at a whole lot of replays that we have from that drama at the very start. It was Menno de Graaf in the number 59 car. I saw him go off the track, and he's what kick-started this incident. He went off into the grass for some inexplicable reason. I think we're going to get a look at a better angle of it. He had to have had some sort of issue. Yeah, he just went off the track and just spun into the path of everybody else. You could see, oh my god, that was a huge hit for a lot of drivers. Kettle Larson getting a huge piece of that incident. But I'm not sure what happened with Menno de Graaf. It just looked like he went straight on going down the back straightaway. That was very odd.
Maybe just a lapse in concentration there? I'm not sure. Just sometimes you get so focused on the cars behind you that you just forget to look in front of you, and maybe that was the case. Maybe there was a tiny hardware failure and he just didn't have time to correct it. But I mean, whatever the issue is, it caused probably one of the biggest accidents that we've seen this entire season. And, well, it's knocked out pretty much everyone from 13th downwards. And they're going to have a rather tricky time trying to get back into this 15-minute sprint race. I mean, if it's going to happen, let it happen in the sprint race, right? You know, you're probably not going to get back into it, but at least you can save yourself for the 45-minute race. Get prepared. Here's another look at it. This is from Craig Gregory's perspective. He, of course, had a bit of a poor qualifying, starting down in, I think it was 16th place. And, well, this should provide some good insights as, yeah, you can see de Graaf just completely just loses all concentration. It didn't look like a hardware failure to me. I just genuinely think he might have got tunnel visioned on the cars behind and, well, made a very, very costly mistake for himself and about 8 other drivers.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake, and honestly, for a series like this, those sort of mistakes, oh man. I guess it's both my place to judge and my place not to judge, because I've been on these Radical SR10 broadcasts for well over a year now here on Apex Racing TV, albeit this is my first with the European Championship. But that's just a goofy mistake to make, and I think I agree with you, Aaron. That had to have not been a hardware failure, because I think if his monitor went or his steering wheel went, he probably would have just slammed on the brakes. But that's that's just absolutely bizarre, and a bizarre way to kick off tonight's racing action here on Apex Racing TV. We're not even 5.5 minutes in, and we already have 3 drivers at the tail end of the field in the pits having to repair some pretty significant damage. That was huge for DeGraff as well. The fact he's still in the lead lap is an absolute miracle. I'm curious if he actually came down pit lane. With that damage, though, I feel like he had to have, because he had to have picked up some sort of meatball flag to come in to repair that damage, mandatory from iRacing, because he had some pretty significant whacks. I think he got hit 7 or 8 times as a result of that incident, but nevertheless, the field actually spreading out a little bit, with Lip and Barry covered by about 0.8 of a second, teetering around that 8 to 9 of a second barrier. That's a further 0.6 of a second back from Barry to Sorensen, with a pretty significant gap between Sorensen and this man, Dennis Kyriakopoulos, right in front of Andres Friedrich, the championship leader, who's probably getting a little bit antsy to get by the Swiss driver running in 4th. Friedrich, as much as he may be in the championship lead, he is in the championship lead by literally nothing. He entered this race tied with James Barry for that pro championship lead, and I think he wants to strike while the iron is hot, of course, in this race. That sets a starting grid for the future later on, so even though it may be one position in a series as topsy-turvy as the Radical European Championship, with literally nothing in it at the top of the championship standings, one position can make all the world of difference when everything's said and done.
Well, let's not forget that, of course, Friedrich and Barry are both competing for the championship, and me and Sam were discussing this last time. I don't know how much the drivers really care about the championship. They just want to get to the World Finals, to be honest, and I don't really blame them. Most of the top drivers have kind of already secured their spot anyway. But, you know, having the bragging rights, saying, you know, I won across a fairly lengthy season from, I think it was, we started this in February, and it's going to finish in November. So, you know, you can say across the entire year, I was the better driver, and at the moment, Friedrich has got past Kyriakopoulos. But at the moment, Barry is 2 places ahead, so he will be taking the lead momentarily of the championship anyway. But we'll see what happens in the 45-minute feature race to see if anything else can change the championship standings. But yeah, like you were saying, Ron, the gaps are spreading out at the moment. Barry's just losing touch with the Lip as he slowly falls out of the slipstream. Friedrich is a bit too far off the podium now to really make a dent, so it's probably going to stay like this, probably in the top 5 anyway. Maybe Bjorklund can get on the back of Kyriakopoulos, maybe even Friedrich, depending on his pace. But apart from that, I can't really see too many other positions changing.
Well, every single time I've said that on the Americas broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, we usually see something very strange. I remember the last race of the season, our Apex Racing TV colleague, Mr. J.R. Gregory, who you can catch every single Friday on the official broadcast here on Apex, he went into low Earth orbit over a bump in the grass at Phillip Island. So some very strange things can happen from this series, and I don't think a battle between all of these drivers is entirely out of the picture. Friedrich leading over Kyriakopoulos and Bjorklund, those drivers running 4th, 5th, and 6th respectively. But then you gotta look at the AM drivers of Berger and Locke a little bit farther in the back. They can be a contender, and if they come to blows, it'd be this man Tom Euler, the number 91 car, inheriting the front running position in the AM category. He's currently running down in 11th overall as things stand at the moment, with about 9 minutes on the clock of this 15-man race, as we have a battle a little bit farther towards the back. This is Stefan Mellis in the number 53 car, trying to go around the outside. There's some tough stuff between himself and Guy, and look at that, sticking around the outside, hang through 5 and 6. I think he's still going to be on that outside line. No, in fact, he's going to clear him in that small little flat out blast between turns 6 and 7, but a little bit of rally action on the exit of the corner, not going to help him at all. Hopefully for his sakes, he didn't pick up a slowdown as a result of that little bit of rally action in front of Damien Guy, but he can see a 3-car pack forming here with Mellis, Guy, and Gregory, covered by barely any air at the moment. We'll see if those drivers start to battle between now and the end. Actually, no, my apologies. That is not Gregory. Gregory a little bit farther in the back. I believe that may be one of the lapped down cars. That is, there you can see Damien Guy in the middle of all of that. I'm not sure who is tailing them at the moment. However, they're getting a great perspective of this battle, which is still hot between Mellis and Guy.
Yeah, well, that's the awkward thing about being a lapped car is where you're just staring at the back of these guys who are just battling. And yeah, that car is a lap down. It's Laliva as Guy desperately trying to battle with Melis, and this battle just seemingly never ending. I wonder if Laliva will just try and get involved. This will be entertaining if he does. And while Smartly for the moment doesn't choose to get involved, as Melis tries to go up the inside. The outside line is probably not going to work for you there, Damien. And yes, it doesn't work this time around. So I think Melis probably is going to have the position as Laliva lets another car go through. I think that was Gregory. And well, you were saying Gregory was quite a ways off. I think he was about 2 seconds away from these guys at the start of this lap. So either they're battling extremely, extremely hard, or Gregory is just insane. And well, judging by the fact that they're going very close through the final corner, I think I know what answer that is.
And I think this 2-car fight has now turned into a 3-car fight. Look at Gregory maybe trying to get a move done down the inside, heading into turn number 1 on Guy. They're going to be side by side on corner exit. A little bit of a wiggle from both of those cars, still side by side through the braking zone of turn 2. Craig Gregory going to clear him to slide his way up into 16th. Dorian Lievre right behind. He's getting a fantastic view of this battle. And speaking of a battle, I think we have a battle for the lead in the M category between Gabriel Berger and Adam Locke. Those two, I think, very briefly swapped positions not terribly long ago. Currently separated by about a 1/10 and a half heading into turn at number 7 right now. These drivers have completely lost track of the battle in front of them. They're very close to the likes of Kyriakopoulos and Bjorklund not terribly long ago, but ever since then, things have just gone desperately, desperately wrong for the two of them. I mean, they're still battling for the lead in the AM category, still running solidly inside the top 10 overall, so things haven't gone too bad for them. However, if they have any sort of hopes and prayers of making their way into the top 5, I feel like they're just gonna have to settle for this fight. Gabriel Berger with a little bit of an oversteer snap midway through turn number 1. That may give Locke a good chance to go for a move very close in the braking zone. Heading into turn number 2, these cars covered by barely any air right towards the tail end of the top 10. You gotta look a little bit farther back to the likes of Gonzaga and Scarrett there as well, running in P9 and P10 respectively. If these drivers start to battle hard and if they come to blows, we could see those two cars a little bit farther in the back get a piece of this action. But right now, Adam Locke in the slipstream of Gabriel Berger coming out of turn number 4 and careening their way downhill into turn number 5. I don't believe Locke is going to have a good enough run heading into 5 to pull off a move. He's still going to stay locked behind. See what I did there? But now as they head through the mid-sector of this lap and deal with the Titan Twisties, I don't think Locke is close enough to get a move done yet. However, I think he is feeling really, really racy, especially considering that we're coming towards the end of this race.
I mean, following a car this closely, I mean, one, Berger must be absolutely bricking it heading on to these final few laps, but Locke as well, he's got good composure. I'll give the lad that, because following a car this closely, it's horrible. You never know what the car in front's going to do. They could brake ever so slightly early, and, well, that's the end of that. Or maybe you could get caught out by the dirty air, or just something could happen. And there's a car off. That's Friedrich. Friedrich's made a mistake somewhere. He's fallen back down to 6th. And well, I don't know what's happened to him. I don't know if it was a lapped car, maybe, but we'll take a look and see what on earth has happened to Friedrich. He's not had a good opening race today, as Friedrich, and this is really going to hurt his championship, as well. Every point seems to matter in this season's championship, and maybe just too late. Yeah, way too late on the brakes, and nothing he could have done. Well, I say that could have broken earlier, but you know.
Oh, I mean, I've made that mistake plenty of time in the Radical SO10. That's the one thing that a lot of drivers like to comment in reference to this car. The brake pedal, there is a razor-thin margin between not pulling up in time and just locking up and going into the corner backwards, sideways, on fire with your tires reduced down to just basically dust and particulates in the atmosphere. But nevertheless, these drivers very close, still battling hard. This is a fight continuing between Berger and Locke. They're now behind Andreas Friedrich, albeit he's about 2 seconds farther up the road. That's not ideal for Friedrich, but as he begins this white flag lap, he may try and size up a move on the likes of Bjorklund and Kyriakopoulos a little bit farther up the road. Those 3 cars at the moment separated by less than a second as it stands after 15 minutes of racing action. Crystal, Christoph Lipp, meanwhile, he's on track to take the victory in the sprint race here at Brands Hatch. Currently has a 2-second gap over himself and James Berry in P2. And Sorensen is a little bit farther back of Berry. We'll see if those two swap positions between now and the end of this final lap of the race. Dennis Kyriakopoulos leading this trio of cars, and actually extending the little bit of a gap is Kyriakopoulos and Bjorklund to the back, to the front, I should say, of Andres Friedrich. Is now 0.6 of a second. I think Friedrich has kind of given up on this race and just hoping to recollect his thoughts and recollect his chances heading into the 45-minute feature coming up in just a couple of minutes time. But as this trio of cars head their way through turn number 8, we're about to see Christoph Lipp take the checkered flag in dominant fashion from the 15-minute sprint from the Radical European Championship. There is the checkered flag from Christoph Lipp, and for the driver who entered this race third in the championship, hoping not to have a miracle in the dying stages of this season, but hoping to have a strong end, a win in the sprint is a great way to kick off the final trio of races. A little bit farther in the back, Berger and Locke were still separated by only 0.2 of a second when everything was said and done. Those two finished line and stern, with Berger grabbing the top running AM position. Lots of drivers crossing the line now. The field was quite spread out, partially because of that major catastrophe we had on the back straightaway at the very beginning, which, as you pointed out, Aaron, looked very similar to Johnny Herbert's crash that he had all the way back in the 80s, I think, in a Formula 3000 race here at this very racetrack. But after that, it broke up the field, but we still had some pretty exciting racing when everything was said and done.
Yeah, very much. It's just, you would say it was rather spoiled by that opening lap incident, but of course we got another race to have a second chance at everything, so good thing we have that. And of course we get strategy involved in everything. People actually have to fuel save. Tires is not really a worry, to be honest. It's not really been a concern this entire season, and maybe if we were doing longer races it would be, but yeah, that first race was rather entertaining, but at the same time, you know, Lip dominant as usual.
And here are the results, and as you just said, Aaron, Lip absolutely dominant, winning 2 seconds over James Berry in P2. Lasse Sorensen going to round out your podium in third. That's going to be the trio of Dennis Kyriakopoulos, Kim André Bjorklund, and Andres Friedrich, finishing 4, 5, and 6th respectively. That's Gabriel Berger, the driver of the number 25 car, finishing this race in 7th. The top running AM when everything was said and done. However, he had a fight on his hands between himself and Adam Locke, the championship contenders in the AM category, putting on a very good show in the 15-minute sprint race that we just had. Jorge Gonzaga and Alexander Scarrett going to round out your top 10.
Well, at least we get a few minutes to just think about everything. The drivers get a little break, maybe to grab a bite, get a drink, go to the loo, whatever they need to do. And honestly, I've said this before, I never knew what to do during these warm-ups. I probably just go on my phone or, you know, have a sip, have a chat with some friends in Discord before the next onslaught, as I always like to call it. Honestly, the last race of a day, and specifically the 45-minute race that we're about to have, always just felt like, how do you describe it? I wouldn't say a battle royale is the right way, but it was just chaos. It was every man for himself. No one cared. You just had to fully send it. Otherwise, you wouldn't really be happy with yourself after the race if you didn't.
You could probably best describe it as like the Hunger Games, pretty much, but with radical SR10s around whatever racetrack it may be. I've seen that in the America's Series as well. The last race that we had from that series, we saw two of the championship contenders crash into each other on lap 1, and that just divulged that whole race into absolute pandemonium. And actually, the driver that kicked off that incident, both of them actually ended up P1 and P2, albeit the driver that kind of kickstarted that incident was the one that ended up winning that feature when everything was said and done. But these races from both the Radical European Championship and the Radical Americas Championship have been fantastically entertaining thus far this season, and we've only got 2 more rounds left to go when everything is said and done tonight. However, just because this series is drawing to a close doesn't mean the rest of the racing action here on Apex Racing TV is drawing to a close either. Currently ongoing is the Racing Unleashed GT3 series. You can catch that every single Sunday, I believe, on Apex Racing TV. If you're in the mood for some multi-class sports car racing, we've got that covered for you tomorrow with the opening round of the Ricmatech World Challenge, round number 1 of the season, coming to you from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. And maybe the same Ricmatech World Challenge, however, they've got a whole different classification of cars, bringing in the LMP2s for the first time in many, many moons, GT3s, GTPs, and LMP2s, running around Indy to kick this season off. And I believe, considering he's my colleague in race control for that, I believe you'll be hearing a word from the race director before the start of that race. If you're in the mood for some Assetto Corsa Competizione action here on Apex, you should check out the Asphalt ACC NM 2024 series. Round number 2 of that season is going to be at Zandvoort the day after that on Tuesday, followed by Operation E Motorsports, the iRacing League, round number 3 of their season at Mosports. And speaking of some multi-class sports car racing action, the Abruzzi ARL Endurance Series is going to be kicking off the 6th round of their season, coming from the Apex Racing TV studios at Sebring. And that's just about it, I believe, in terms of the stuff coming up this week. However, there's a whole lot of series coming up in the next few weeks here on Apex Racing TV. Ooh, that was a nice drift from whoever that was coming through turn number 1. But nevertheless, Aaron, getting ready to get things up and rolling from this 45-minute long feature race. And as this warm-up session comes to a close, I want to ask you, what is the main thing that you're keeping your eye on when it comes to this 45-minute long feature?
James Barry. Simple. He's just a magician when it comes to saving fuel. I don't know what realistically he's doing different to anyone else. I don't know if he is just able to manage his pace a little bit better than everyone else, but he always is just the quickest in the pit stops, without a doubt. Maybe on occasion someone will be able to match him or get close to him, but he's just magic, and I don't understand how or what, but it's amazing, and it's just something that you have to sit back and respect. As he could be in third 1 minute, 3-4 seconds off the lead, he'll come out of the pits in the lead. It doesn't make any sense. It's happened multiple times this season, but you cheer him on every single time it does, and it's put him in the position that he's in right now. After that first race, he is leading the championship, so it would be a good way to end off today at Brands Hatch at his home track to get a good win and extend that lead.
And the hometown hero looking to impress in front of his hometown crowd here in iRacing. He's going to be starting this second race of the evening, the 45-man feature in P2. Here is the starting grid, and as was the case for that first race, Christoph Lipp going to be leading them to green. James Berry going to join him on the front row. Lasse Sorensen in third. Dennis Kyriakopoulos in fourth. Kim André Björklund going to be starting this race in fifth after finishing the first race in fifth. Then it's Andres Friedrich in sixth. Gabriel Berger and Adam Locke going to complete an all-am row number 4. That's Jorge Gonzaga and Alexander Skoretz going to round at your top 10. Tom Euler going to be starting this race in 11th. Mats Jestrom-Bakken, who put on a very good recovery drive after starting that first race from the pits, he's going to be starting in 12th. That's Gordon Haugen 13th. Gunnar Sennström in 14th, that's going to be Craig Gregory in 15th, Stefan Mellis in 16th, Damian Gee in 17th, Kettle Larson in 18th, Menno de Graaf in 19th, Sally Reinen in 20th, Dorian Lievre in 21st, and Guy Robertson rounding out the 22 cars that have just taken the green. The green is out, and the drivers are on their way, and it's deja vu from the first race as Christoph Lipp going to lead them into turn number 1. Barry slotting in right behind him, P2, with Lasse Sorensen slotting into third. For now, however, you can see James Berry having to take a real shallow line heading off into turn number 2 at the very beginning of this race, trying to figure out any sort of way to get past the Brits. But right now we've got battling up and down this field. Look at Kettle Larson and the no good, very bad start that he has had, currently running down in 15th. Not ideal. Not the way he wanted this race meeting for him to go. But as the field comes out of turn number 4, my mind harkens back to the drama that we had at the start of race 1. Hopefully we can go under this bridge without a driver hitting it. That would not be ideal for the drivers up and down this 22 car grid. But as they head through turn number 5 and 6 clean for the very first time, it's Christoph Lipp at the front, Barry in P2, Sorensen in third, Friedrich and Kyriakopoulos going to round out your top 5.
Yeah, well, a lot cleaner of a start. The entire field are actually, half a second in between each other. That is shocking. Don't know the last time that happened in this series, to be honest, but we've gotten through, and well, this is going to provide some very entertaining close racing on this second lap, as maybe people on that first lap taking it a bit timid purely because of what happened in that first race, and now they've kind of thought, okay, we got through the first lap, right, time to send it into turn 1. Here we go. As a couple drivers at the back seem to have had some problems. Robertson, DeGraff, and Gregory getting a bit mixed up with each other, lost about 3 seconds in total. As Locke has gone past Berger for the lead in the amateur championship, a championship in the standings, as that battle was brewing for the entirety of the first race, going very close to each other, but very clean, very respectable between those two, and that is going to be an entertaining one to watch out for in this entire feature race. 45 minutes of that is going to be so entertaining, and Scarrett trying to get past both of these. He'd obviously want to do this as quickly as possible, as the amateur and pro standings are separate, so it's just about where you finish in your class, not about where you finish overall. So a bit of a unique set of point system compared to a lot of other championships. So it's going to be interesting to see what Berger and Locke do, and if Scarrett just tries and force his way past to catch up to the cars ahead. Because that's a move from Christian Barkin on Gonzaga into the second to last corner. That got very close between those two. Not seeing too many moves through there. And around the outside into the last corner, that's going to be tricky and doesn't work for him on this occasion. And, well, we're still fairly clean. Surprising, but when everyone gets through these first few laps cleanly, you just got to give everyone a round of applause. Very well done.
And that may be a commentator's jinx, and we're going to see a driver hit the moon in about 5 seconds time. 4, 3, 2, 1. No, we didn't see that. Instead, we're seeing a battle continue here. Gordon Haug has a fantastic view of this fight between Gonzaga and Gestrombakken. Gestrombakken, credit where credit's due to the Norwegian man. The fact he started this race from the pits, started the first race from the pits, that being. The fact he's running in 11th, 3 minutes into this 45-minute long feature race, he's setting himself up quite well. I don't think he's going to be a driver contending for the win or even the podium for that matter. However, we could see him sneak his way up into the top 5 if he plays his cards right and drivers a little bit farther up the road run into some sort of trouble. But as we follow the 708 car of Gunnar Stenstrud, he's currently running in 15th at the moment, tailing another Norwegian driver. Have a whole lot of Norwegian drivers up and down the grid. That's Kettle Larsen running right in front, and Kettle has had a pretty good start to this second race. Ooh, as a move nearly getting put on him by, I believe that was Gonzaga that we are following. Matt Gestrombakken nearly went for the dive heading into the final corner. That would have been some bold stuff from the Norwegian. However, turn him out a little bit as we have Norwegians going side by side heading into turn number 1. And that, I think, is the most amount of time I've said the word Norwegian on a single broadcast here on Apex Racing TV in the history of ever.
Yeah, for some reason, Scandinavians, specifically Norwegians, just seem to love this car, and well, maybe it's just the very... I mean, I was about to say the loose nature of it, but to be fair, this car kind of provokes more understeer than oversteer, so... Yeah, I don't know why the Norwegians like this car so much, but there is a lot of them, and well, they cover about half the grid. And well, you got Reiten in there as well, who's Finnish, and unfortunately, we don't have any Swedish or Danish drivers, I don't believe. So it's just Norwegians who seem to absolutely adore this car, and well, fair enough. They seem to be performing well in it as well. We've got Sorensen up in the podium, doing the country proud. Got Bjorklund as well up in the top 6. Bjorklund really has stepped it up this season, gotta say. He's really done well for himself in this season, just slowly gotten better and better, and in the top 6 at the moment, going to be one of his better finishes if he can stay there. But he is surprisingly under pressure from Gabriel Berger behind, and well, like I mentioned before, it's not going to matter for points if Berger can get past, but it will just put a buffer between himself and Adam Locke, so that could be a potential strategy that we see from Berger. It would be risky to do it, but you got to do what you got to do to try and fight for a championship. Here's Gregory and De Graaf going for a move, and Gregory manages to get past with relative ease into turn 2 and can now charge off ahead.
Some pretty textbook stuff from the driver of the 999 car heading into turn number 2. But getting back to that discussion that we just had a couple of moments ago that you brought up, and oh, as a spin coming off of the corner, that's Robertson. That was a very comedic camera swap as we saw Robertson swap ends coming off of turn number 4. That's going to drop him down to last at the moment. That, I believe, is the first on-track incident that we've had thus far in this 45-minute long feature race. Only 6.5 minutes on the clock at the moment, and as Jorge Gonzaga still battles to remain inside the top 10. He's got the likes of Jestrenbach and Haug and Euler as well. Between him all the way back down to Guy in 18th, there's just no major gaps at all. So Gonzaga is very much the Pied Piper in this feature race thus far. You've got the likes of Cato Larson, who we're following right now, running in 14th. He's currently the second from bottom of the pro drivers right now, so he's maybe going to try and size up some moves in the not too distant future. And as we're following Gordon Haug, the driver for SimRacing Norway, I think we should talk about another Norwegian driver, that being Kim André Bjorklund, and get onto that discussion. Talking about Bjorklund, or as I called him on my first ever broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, Bjorklund. Talking about Bjorklund, Berger, and Locke. This is, I think, a good strategy call from Berger if he wants to get that move done on Bjorklund and try and force the issue a little bit. I think he has a pace advantage because Bjorklund has dropped back a whole lot. He's 2.1 seconds off of Dennis Kyriakopoulos in 5th. So I think, honestly, at this point in time, Berger getting by Bjorklund would help him out a whole lot, and matters aren't being helped for Adam Locke. The fact that Alexander Scarrett is applying a little bit of pressure with those two cars separated by about a half a second, a little bit farther down the road. But Gabriel Berger putting himself in a pretty good spot right now, but knowing my luck, I probably just jinx him, and he's going to end up in the wall in a couple laps' time.
Yep, that's usually how it goes. You mentioned a driver. They're doing so well, they've been in. It's happened many occasions. I believe it happened to me the last time we did a radical broadcast, actually at Phillip Island. So, very much trying to be careful with what I say today because drivers just seem to hate me and every single word that I say for some reason. But oh well, it is what it is. So Gabriel Berger still trying to apply some relative pressure. That's Larson going for a move on Tom Euler, and he's up into 13th place. Larson, I believe, was one of the drivers who was involved in that incident at the start on the first race. So just trying to make his way back through the field. And honestly, it's a bit of a difficult call in a race like this when you're trying to make your way through the field. Do you just try and fuel save and completely outdo everyone on fuel strategy? Or do you just max push it and just see where you end up? As Leliva goes past Stenstrud, that's crucial for his championship as well. Leliva been struggling a little bit recently with consistency. And, well, today's race obviously not helping that at all. And kind of allowing the likes of Adam Locke to just run away in the championship, as that's Melis going very, very wide. Christian Barkin getting past Gonzaga as well. Lots of overtaking action happening on this lap anyway, as we head into the last corner. Outside line through here doesn't really work. It's a little bit off camera on the outside, so you just lose so much grip around there, and you just will end up in the grass if you're not careful. As everyone, honestly, this battle for 10th, it goes all the way down to Euler, and everyone's trying to overtake each other. And when you get a situation like that, it can end in tears, as that's a small lockup. Gonzaga going very wide. Can one of the cars behind Haug trying to get involved as well round the outside? This will be impressive, and he's done it, I believe. He has. Fully ahead. Hats off to Gordon Haug, as Gonzaga losing another place as Larson tries to go up the inside. But I believe Gonzaga will have the momentum around the outside and will have the inside line for this next corner. So I think Gonzaga should be safe, but losing 2 positions in the matter of a few corners, not ideal from the Portuguese. Not ideal at all.
Gonzaga usually very fast in these radical SR10s, but he's struggling in the early stages right now. That was a slick move from Gordon Haug around the outside through turn number 3. That's a really tricky move to pull off, as is doubly so considering how close the drivers get to picking up a slowdown on corner exit there. Lots of these drivers try pushing the envelope around every single racetrack. You give a driver an inch, they're going to try and ask for a mile. But as this fight continues to heat up, I gotta say, you mentioned it 1 lap ago, Aaron, about these drivers being as aggressive as they are and battling as hard and as close as they are. You said that it may end in tears. I feel like just based off how they're driving, I feel like it probably will end in tears, because with how long these battles continue to develop, something's got to break here. And I feel like one of these drivers is going to have a mistake, and it's going to end in tears. Of course, not disregarding the talent that these drivers have behind the wheel. I think it's more so just a law of averages. If you go for a bonsai overtake every single corner, eventually one of them ain't going to stick.
Or it could mean the opposite. One of them will stick. It's just about the risks that you're willing to take in a race like this, as Bjorklund is still very much under pressure from Berger, which is not surprising. It's really showing that Berger and Adam Locke as well, who's slowly started to claw back a little bit. It does show that, like I said at the start of this broadcast, sometimes the AMs really can compete with the pros and just match them on occasions. And then I think it was the last time race at Phillip Islands where the AMs were kind of nowhere, and this is the inconsistency that I was talking about, that sometimes they can be rapid and, you know, nearly fighting for podiums even, but then sometimes they can just fall off the wayside. But today it seems like the Brit power of Berger and Locke here at Brands Hatches are really paying off, as they're the only AMs within the top 14 even. So the next driver, you have to go the way down to 14th, but unfortunately for them, it doesn't mean anything. They will still be scoring similar points, as that's Reisenen getting very close to the back of, I believe that was Euler in front. But yeah, like I was saying, the way the point system works with this is you just got to be consistent, and it doesn't matter where you finish overall. Just as long as you finish at the top of your class, you should be fine.
Ooh, as the battles continue up and down this field, lots of these drivers just battling oh so hard. There's a fight between Kim Andre and Bjorklund and Berger, and I gotta say, Locke has come back from the brink of disaster, and he's slowly closing in that gap between these two, albeit the battling is definitely helping him out. He's gotta grab another spot, with Bjorklund having some rally action on the outside of turn 7. That could have ended in tears for all three of those drivers involved in that battle, but Berger, he finally displaced Kim Andre and Bjorklund. However, it really had the reverse effect compared to what he really had in mind. He wanted to get by and just build a little bit of a buffer. In reality, though, the gap between himself and Locke has never been this close in this race thus far. However, Kim Andre and Bjorklund may end up saving Berger, as they may start to battle in the not-too-distant future. Sally Reinen has now come into the pits. He's currently running outside the top 20 as a result of this early call to come down pit lane. And look at that, Alexander Skaret now gang in the midst of this. That 712 car now going side by side with the fellow Norwegian driver heading through turn number 3. They make it through single file, with Bjorklund still remaining in P8. But as much as Berger wanted to get that move done, it really backfired with that battle now that he has on his hands with Locke.
It's really starting to heat up now, as all Bjorklund's got to be a bit careful here. Skaret getting really close. Not a move through turn 5 that you see very often, but it can work if you're bold and brave enough. And it's very, very close side by side there. Bjorklund just about keeping the position. Very good work there from the Norwegian, just about holding ahead of his fellow Norwegian for 8th place. And, well, he's kept him out this time. Can Skaret try and pounce over the next few laps, as he's also got Gretchenbacher not too far behind? All of these cars separated by about 0.6 of a second. It is incredibly close, and that's the kind of gaps that you will get here at Brands Hatch. It can be super, super close, but you have to pick your moments. You just got to be a little bit patient, wait for the opportunity to be close enough, and trust me, as a driver, you'll know when that opportunity is. As in the background, Gordon Haug as well, trying to put a move on Larson, as that's getting super, super close between them as well. And, well, pretty much everyone from about 7th downwards, it's just mayhem. Everyone's battling each other constantly. And then everyone sort of in the top 6 is very calm, very collected. Everyone's saving fuel. Everyone's being sensible. Everyone's just waiting for the pit stops, the opportunities. And then here we go. The two teammates being very easy on each other, as expected. As Gretchenbacher has gotten past Skaret, clearly they think that he has more pace than Skaret, and, well, we'll see what he can do if he can actually get the move done on Bjorklund.
Like the point that he brought up there a few moments ago, Aaron, about how this race has just gone everyone's races have gone down two completely different directions. It's either you're in the groove, you're settling in for a 45-minute long race now with 16 minutes on the clock and 13 laps on the board. Some of these drivers are settling in, trying to see what they can do pit stop strategy wise. However, for a decent chunk of this field, including James Berry, who has Sorensen only about 0.3 of a second behind, they're just screaming. They're just behind the car going, ah, because they don't know what's going on in this race. That's the first time I've ever screamed here on Apex Racing TV, and I think there's good reason to scream because these drivers are under so much pressure coming to the end of the season. These drivers are feeling the burn, and they're feeling their competitors being ever so racy and even more aggressive than they have been in the earlier stages of this season. James Berry, at this point in time, he's trying to hold on because as much as it is threatening that Lasse Sorensen is only 0.3 of a second behind, he's also got Andres Friedrich in tow as well. This has pretty big implications when it comes to that championship fight. Berry wanted to impress, and he certainly did with that P2 result in the sprint earlier on. However, at this point in time, I really think that it may be swinging back towards the way of Andres Friedrich. It looks like Berry just doesn't have a whole lot of pace to contend, at least with Lip, who's still pulling away.
Yes, this is the James Barry facade. It looks like, oh, he's struggling. Oh no, what's gonna happen? And then he's 3 seconds ahead when we come out of the pits. Honestly, I'm just waiting for it because I know it's gonna happen. It happens every single race. Just waiting for the James Barry magic. I don't know if he secretly has a bigger fuel tank at the start. I don't know, but he just manages to do it every single time we have a radical European race. So I'm expecting the exact same thing to happen today, probably in about 10-ish minutes time. We usually get the pit stops around the 30-minute mark, give or take, depending on what tracks we're at. But Lip does seem to just have the pace advantage. But, I mean, to be fair, on this lap, especially in that first sector, Barry lost about half a second. So, clearly he is struggling. And maybe you are right. Maybe he does have a bit of lack of pace in this race today and can't really compete with Lip ahead. But luckily for him, I think Lip is probably about, I think, 13 or 12 points behind him at the moment in the championship, depending on what happened in that first race, if anyone did get the bonus point for getting no off tracks or not. But it's going to be close. But Barry, all he needs to do for this race anyway is just come second. I think he'll be more than happy with that.
I'm sure a lot of people are hoping for this race to just settle into some sort of groove. I'm sure my father is, because he just sent me a text message not terribly long ago asking if I got stung by a wasp after that scream I scrumped a couple of moments ago. But nevertheless,
it did scare me,
I think this... Okay, yeah, I would like to apologize to anyone that had the daylight scared out of them here on Apex Racing TV. To tune into some more scary action, so to speak, remember to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a thing. But with that very terrible plug out of the way, let's talk about this fight for the AM lead. Berger and Locke covered by only 0.3 of a second, and at this point, these two have just been inseparable so far today. They were close throughout the entirety of the sprint race, and despite the fact that they were separated by about a second and a half, not terribly long ago, that gap has just been vacuum sealed shut, and these two cars are just about as close as they have been all evening, as we have a fight between the IGL Coatings duo that I believe is Larson and Scarrett that were battling heading into turn number 5. I think we'll just, man, it's hard to say how things are going to shake out in this race. These races are always so difficult to try and predict. But Berger and Locke at this point, I honestly cannot pick between the two of them. I've gotten the privilege to race against both of those drivers in some of the officials. They are both incredibly fast. Of course, running 6th and 7th in this field full of a lot of esports pros is very, very impressive. So Gabriel Berger and Adam Locke are going to be trading blows like it's going out of style between now and the end of this race coming up in about 25 minutes time. I know it's very early to ask this question, Aaron, and we haven't even had the pit stops to deal with yet. Who do you think is going to be the one that you're keeping your eyes on when it comes to this AM fight?
Honestly, Adam Locke, because I'm in the impression that I think once he gets ahead, I don't know what Gabriel Berger's going to do. But what I've seen from Gabriel Berger so far this season is he is one of the best defensive drivers that I've seen. I think he fought off Craig Gregory at Alton Park for literally 40 minutes, and I think he came out on top. So yeah, Berger can do the do when he wants to, and when he's up there fighting for the lead of the race, his defensive capabilities are not really matched by anyone else, at least in the AMs. So we'll have to see how good of an attacking driver Adam Locke is, and maybe he'll be relying on the pit stops to try and get ahead, as well the gap between them is pretty much at a constant 0.2 of a second. In fact, at the moment it's under that. It's incredibly close, but like I said, I think a few laps ago, unfortunately here at Brands Hatch, there's not really any like big braking zones that you can try out brake anyone into, because the only one you would say would be turn 2, but unfortunately it's got quite a fast right-hander just before it, so you lose all momentum on the car ahead when you go in there, and then you can't really go for a send. It's a very tricky track to try and overtake here, but when you do it, it's extremely satisfying, and it just makes it feel that much more rewarding as well. Here we go, Damien Guy trying to prove my point, but doesn't look like he was quite brave enough on the brakes, and just has to stay behind Stenstrud on this occasion.
I think we had an incident a little bit farther behind involving Craig Gregory. He is now out of the race, the first retirement that we've had from any of the races thus far, and he's entirely disconnected, so he will not be joining us throughout the rest of this 45-minute long race. So as most of the field has been fairly clean, albeit quite chaotic thus far, we're going to take a look at a replay of the incident involving Craig Gregory. That car did not look like it was handling well. The thing was bouncing up and down like a pogo stick, hanging through some of the corners as he spins coming out of turn number 8. And okay, he avoids contact with Menno de Graaf, who was the next car on the scene of that incident. That car looked like it was ill handling, lost it, nearly hit the inside wall, then snapped around on him, well held to keep it out of the barriers, at least at that point in time. He enters the pits now, hits the weird crease on pit entry. He's going to run down the pit, so unless he got abducted by a UFO here, I'm not entirely sure what happened with Craig Gregory. Maybe after that spin, he just decided to call it quits, and judging from the fact that his little helmet just disappeared from the car, I believe that Craig Gregory just decided to call it a day. So the 999 driver had a okay, it must be said, opening race of the evening. However, things did not plan in this feature. He's going to be the first retirement of the night, and ooh, that's a big moment a little bit farther behind as we're following Gunnar Stenstrud. That was, I believe that may have been Guy. That was very sideways coming out of 2.
Yeah, these guys were battling for oh so long. As Guy momentarily gets ahead, I'm guessing Stenstrud is going to go right down the inside, as it's quite difficult to hold the outside line through there, and I think he just gets a little bit too wide, tries to get on throttle a little bit too early, gets a snap of oversteer, and ends up nearly on the grass. But managed to keep it on the track, but has lost just a few seconds to Ole Gunnar Stenstrud, so he can just focus on well, what's ahead of him as Guy goes off again. In the background, he's not having a good lap this, as he is just losing more and more time to Stenstrud, as we cut back now to Gonzaga, who we haven't seen in at least a few laps, as he now tries to chase down Gordon Howell for 12th place. And I think at this point, everyone's just waiting for those pit stops. I don't think we're going to see that much battling. We might see some here and there, but everyone's kind of starting to get a bit low on fuel. Everyone's trying to push each other to use more fuel than the other, get more time out of their pit stops, and some other drivers might be going a bit more passive, and you just don't know until we do get to those oh so crucial pit stops. And well, Barry, I know I've been saying he is good at pit stops, but I mean 3 seconds is a lot of time to make up in the pit stops, so well, let's see what he can do. As Lip, this looks like to be one of his more comfortable and dominant victories, like the Lip that we were seeing at the start of the season. So maybe it's back to form for the German, and maybe he can push a championship charge over these next few rounds.
Hey, I certainly can't rule it out. He still has a decent way to try and do it. As much as James Berry is looking to impress at his hometown track, his home race here from the Radical European Championship, Where does the season end? It ends at the Nordschleife in Germany, so that would probably play into the wheelhouse of the likes of Andreas Friedrich and Christoph Lipp. You just never know with this series. Jorge Gonzaga has now come down pit lane. He was running just outside the top 10, was involved in some very hard battles so far in this race. So he's one of the first contenders to make a run to go down pit lane outside of Sally Reitinen, who's running down in 20th. So we'll see how Jorge Gonzaga exits out in reference to Reitinen. I believe he would be ahead, just mainly off the fact that Reinen was running a little bit farther behind Gonzaga by the time he came down pit lane. However, it was only about 5 seconds on pit exit, and keep in mind Gonzaga is now on much cooler tires. As much as these drivers don't have to swap tires, the tire life is still pretty good at the end of these 45-minute long feature races. They still lose a whole lot of temperature running slowly down the pit lane, and in these Radical SR10 races, that can make a world of difference.
Yeah, it definitely can, and well, these tyres, as many people have mentioned in the past, they tend to overheat fairly easily, as Adam Locke has just lost a bit of time. He's battling with Greschenbarken, I believe, as Larson as well is firmly in this fight now as well. This is pretty much all the way from 6th all the way down to 10th place, this battle, as Berger is about a second ahead, as Locke has to be a bit careful there, as Greschenbarken really wants to get past. He's almost shoving his way past the Brit, and Adam, I don't think will try and fight this one too much, as Greschenbarken seems to be the quicker driver, and he does eventually let him go. And that's another position for Greschenbarken. Again, doesn't mean anything in terms of points, but it's just about that buffer between those few cars that he's got now between himself and Bjorklund and Larson as well. And well, Berger's going to be amazingly happy with this. He's just going to be running away with it, running away from Locke, and it's, well, depending on what his pit stop's going to be, it could be a fairly comfortable victory for Gabriel Berger in the AMS today.
That would definitely be a result that he wanted, leaving this only 2 races left to go after this race meeting here at Brands Hatch. So Berger, hey, he's not going to turn down this result one bit. If anything, he may try and add to it a little bit. However, you don't want to push the limit too hard, otherwise you may end up in the barrier, a gravel trap, or maybe, as I said earlier on in the broadcast, some driver may hit the moon. I mean, I haven't seen that in my year and a half so of doing sim racing broadcasting, but hey, you never know. I've seen some stranger things in iRacing. Adam Locke has now come down pit lane, so there's an interesting call from the Brit running second in the AM category to come in at I think this is honestly a decent time for him to come down pit lane. I think some drivers may have also echoed his belief. We may see some more come down pit lane. Now, I'm curious how this is going to change the strategy that Gabriel Berger was eyeing up coming into this feature race. Is he going to try and cover off? Is he going to come in this time by? Or is he just going to stick to whatever plan that he had and maybe stay out for a little bit?
I think he'll probably just try and stay out. To be fair, I don't think other drivers coming in will change his strategy too much. Maybe it goes to show that maybe Locke was just pushing his car a little bit more, using a bit more fuel as Berger blips in and out of existence. It really does depend how much everyone is fuel saving, because of course we have no clue. We don't know how much lift and coasting people are doing, if any. And well, maybe James Barry is, and we'll see what's the fuel whisperer can do when he comes in, probably in about a lap or two's time. And this is probably the longest I've seen people go on their starting fuel at the start of the race. I don't think we've seen anyone really go this long before. It's usually around about the 28-minute mark when we see pretty much everyone coming in. So maybe either everyone's being very passive in their fuel management, or Brands Hatch doesn't really use that much fuel, and I'm going to guess it's probably the latter, which, honestly, a bit surprising, but I guess there's not really that many low-speed corners to accelerate out of from, so that might have something to do with it.
I like that term fuel whisper that you used a few moments ago, Aaron. I may have to hijack that. I've never heard that on a broadcast, let alone with you. We've done a whole lot of them here on Apex Racing TV over the past year and a half. That's a pretty good phrase. I always thought fuel, like the smell of gasoline, makes people a bit, you know, but I don't know, maybe that's just a cheap, crappy gasoline that we have here in the U.S., but nevertheless, Andres Friedrich is still very close. Yes, it is correct. Lasse Sorensen is right in front of him as Gabriel Berger dropping down the running order a little bit. May have had a little mistake in the past few moments. He's losing out a whole lot of time as Sorensen and Friedrich coming down pit lane. This is an interesting call from them. Kyriakopoulos going to follow, and as we take a look at a replay to see exactly what went wrong with Gabriel Berger, the driver who up until a few moments ago we just thought, yeah, he's probably just going to run away with it in the AM category. The classic commentator jinx biting both of us on the butt. It was a slide and a drift coming out of turn number 6. Well held, Gabriel Berger. Yeah, sick drift, bruh, indeed. That's probably the first and last time I'll ever say that on a broadcast. But that's the only way you can describe it. The fact he didn't end up with that car nose into a barrier is an honest-to-God miracle. Kyriakopoulos, meanwhile, just jumped in front of Lasse Sorensen. I think Lasse Sorensen made a big mistake here. I've seen this on the Americas broadcast I've done, and I'm sure you've seen this on the European Championship broadcast so far this season, Aaron. He got a penalty. Yeah, it's a stop and hold penalty. I was thinking that may have been him not clicking the tire change button. However, it was a pit lane speeding penalty. It just came in with a little bit too much gusto, and it ends in tears for Lasse Sorensen, who was on track to finish on the podium spot. However, with that mistake, that is a game ender. He's now down in 18th, hopelessly out of contention, and here comes the race leader, Christoph Lipp. And Barry in as well.
Yep, this, well, it's time to find out if I've been chatting utter all day about James Barry. Maybe he'll have the slowest pit stop. Let's see. As everyone who hasn't pit yet will be coming into the pits this lap. I don't believe anyone will. Okay, never mind. Hello, Bjorkland. Prove me wrong as he takes the lead of the race. He's the only one not to come in. And, well, clearly he's been very good on his fuel. And, wow, okay, I wasn't chatting utter about James Barry, as he has had the quickest pit stop out of everyone today and gained about 1.5 seconds on Christoph Lipp. It's not enough, obviously, but it's still a lot, and it will put him firmly ahead of Friedrich and Kyriakopoulos. As Berger, I'm surprised he's still ahead of Locke, considering that spin he had. It's a lot closer, but it just goes to show how much Locke was struggling over those last few laps.
Is just barely in front of Locke, though. Gabriel Berger, he's going to be struggling between now and the end of this race, because after that slide, not only are his tires probably cooked and you could probably fry an egg on top of them, it also doesn't help that with that slide and the lockup he had trying to keep that car going in a straight line, his front tires have either been reduced down to the canvas or have been turned into rectangles as a result of that escapade he had before the pit stop. But right now, it's only 0.3 of a second between himself and Locke. That's the battle for the AM lead, and both of those drivers involved in the AM championship fight. So that has championship implications as well. As long as Gabriel Berger can hold on to a P1 or P2 result, that'll still be a pretty good afternoon for the Brit. But right now, they're stuck behind Lasse Sorensen. Actually, no, that's Kettle Larson. My apologies, with Sorensen dropping back. Larson at this stage, though, I think he may be acting as a little bit of a rolling roadblock in this fight, and I think Adam Locke is going to be enjoying the presence of Larson, because as long as Larson's in front and Gabriel Berger is struggling with cooked tires and dirty air, this is going to give Adam Locke the chance he needs to try and snag the victory here in this feature.
I am very confused by Andre Bjorklund. How is he still going? I thought he'd be coming in this lap, but no, he's gone 2 laps more than anyone else. Yeah, I don't know if he has an extra few liters in that radical, or he is literally, maybe he switched to diesel at the start of the race. I don't know, and he's just going longer. I don't know. Bjorklund is doing a fantastic job with the fuel, and I really do expect to see him into the pits this lap. If I don't, there's something fishy going on with Andre Bjorklund, as everyone else has been forced into the pits, being too low on fuel. So come on, Bjorklund. And I believe he is coming into the pits. Yes, he is. So I don't know how he's gone 2 laps extra than everyone else, but he should have an almighty low pit stop. And this could really do his race some favors, as Christoph Lipp does retake the lead, as James Barry also comes across the line. And he is still losing a little bit of time to Christoph Lipp at the top, but Bjorklund could come out in a good position here. And yeah, unsurprisingly, he's had the fastest pit stop of anyone by over a second. which is absolutely mental, and he comes out in 5th place. I believe he was in like 8th or 9th before the pit stops, and well, he's now up to 5th. That's incredible. And well, never mind, he's down to 6th as he gets overtaken by Christian Barken, but clearly Bjorklund has seen something, as that's not quite the defensive maneuver that Bjorklund would have wanted, as unfortunately he lets Christian Barken through. As well, speaking of Christian Barken, he really has had a great race, as has Larson as well. They've both gained a huge amount of places. Both have had some great pace, some good strategy as well, as Bjorklund tries to hound Christian Barken, and I can imagine this is going to be a battle going on for the next 10 minutes. But yeah, Bjorklund somehow managing to go 2 laps extra than everyone else, and I really do not know how he's managed to do that.
It's honestly, these drivers pulling off miracles week in and week out. That is unbelievable. The fact that Kim-Andre Bjorklund was able to stay out on the racetrack for as long as he did. There you can see the time spent stopped in the pit box. 7.8 seconds for Kim-Andre Bjorklund. I just noticed Sorensen there at that 50.1. That's gonna sting. There can be no doubt about it. That's going to sting for Lasse Sorensen. But 7.8 seconds down in his pit box for Kim-Andre Bjorklund, staying at not terribly longer than everybody else. However, it was just long enough for him to help out his chances in this race, losing a little bit of time to Gestrombakken at the moment, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make his way back up into the top 5, but still, credit where credit's due from Kim-Andre Bjorklund to be able to run that race with the efficiency that he did. I'll tell you what, if I had the fuel efficiency that Kim-Andre Bjorklund had in my car, I won't have to fill up anywhere near as many times as I do. Looking at the fight now between Gabriel Berger and Adam Locke, these two cars still covered by barely any air. It was down to about 0.2 of a second not terribly long ago, ballooning out a little bit, heading through the mid-sector of this lap. 28 laps on the board, 37 minutes on the clock. Not a whole lot of time left to go for drivers up and down the grid. At this point in time, many of them are seeing the sun go down, and they're trying to just make it home. Berger at this point, he's just trying to stay alive. He wants to try and maintain that gap and actually extend it between himself and Adam Locke. However, Locke didn't do himself too many favors. He lost a decent amount of time hanging through turn number 6 just a couple of moments ago. I believe he had a small little off-track moment, possibly ran a little bit wide, but Adam Locke and Berger treating us to a very good show in the AM class, and we've mentioned this before on this broadcast. These two drivers are fighting for the championship in the AM category, so there's going to be no love lost between these two drivers. And talking about a close fight, I believe we have one on our hands between Skorette and Haug, as those two cars are separated by about 1/4 of a second right towards the tail end of the top 10, right behind as well. Beautiful camera transition there, Luis. That was very slick. About less than 0.2 of a second now separating the two of them coming off of turn number 2. Lots of 2s in the past few seconds here, but Skorette and Haug starting to fight. Berger and Locke continuing to fight, and I think that Gestrombakken and Bjorklund fight is an entirely game set match, as that gap is still under a second.
Oh, here we go. This should be potentially the move for Gordon Haug as he tries to look up the inside, and it's just not enough there. You saw how close he was. It was about 1/10 of a second, but that still is not enough here at Brands Hatch, and that's just the fine margins. You've got to be absolutely spot on fighting another car and waiting for those opportunities to come your way. Because if you don't, you're just going to lose all that momentum that you spent the last few laps building up, and then you've got to do it all over again. I guess the best way I can describe it, think of it as sort of oval racing, specifically NASCAR. You've got to kind of build up some momentum and then go for the move instead of just, hounding them constantly. And that's kind of what you got to do at this track, just building that momentum and then go for it when you can. And then you should be able to get the move done, unless you're driving against someone who just is like the best defensive driver in the world. So I was trying to think of a driver, but I just can't. My brain is just, yeah, I'm not firing on all cylinders.
Maybe we could, do you want a driver that's defensive in Radical SR10s, or do you want a driver that's just defensive,
just in general.
Period?
Yeah,
just
that's
in
what
general,
I was trying to think.
We'll go 2021 Sergio Perez on this one. I mean, he was calling the Mexican Minister of Defense for a very good reason. How against Garrett going side by side, heading into turn number 5. A beautiful time for us to start talking about Formula 1, and side by side still with Haug getting that move done to slip his way up into 10th. Well done. Meanwhile, Berger and Locke going side by side. Actually, no, I believe that Berger just had about 3 blinks and 3 alien encounters over the past few moments. He dropped behind Locke, then in front of him, then behind him, then in front of him. Some strange UFO activity going on here at Brands Hatch towards the end of this race and towards the end of the season. Berger blinking out of existence still, so this is maybe going to change how Adam Locke pushes this race. I don't know about you, Aaron, but I've been in Adam Locke's position before, just battling a driver with the internet connection that made it seem like his Wi-Fi router was a cereal box. So maybe Adam Locke may be changing the way he's going to attack these final few laps, with Berger blinking out of existence and seeing aliens about 7 times over the past 30 seconds.
Yeah, Gabriel Berger's internet is just getting worse and worse as this race goes on. You know, maybe at the start of this race you could say it was a full-on jacket potato. Now it's just down to a single fry. As it's genuine, on that last lap he had about 4 or 5 in and out moments. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean when you're fighting with a driver that's internet connection is actually terrifying, because they could make a mistake and get a bit slow off a corner and then they spawn back in, and you know, no one take this out of context, but they are literally inside you, and that's where things get messy. You have to be so careful when you're racing someone with poor internet connection, because like you said, it will end in just, no, it will end horribly if you're not careful. And even if you can race them cleanly, I mean, it's iRacing, you've got to watch out for the netcode, because you make any sudden moves, they make any sudden moves, iRacing will try and predict where they're going to go, and then you're both into a wall. So you just got to be careful. And Adam Locke, leading the championship, has got to think to himself if it's worth it trying to go for a very risky move. And he's not really been able to do it in this race, and it's just been too difficult here at Brands Hatch. Literally, he was side by side, if not about half a tenth behind, and he just couldn't do it. But just because of the nature of this track, it's just not really feasible for Adam Locke, unfortunately. And I can't see him getting the move done. I'd love to be proved wrong. I'd love to be. I want to see some good racing, as he's very clearly pushing the car to its limits there through turn 5, and perhaps getting a little bit impatient, having to stare at the back of Berger's car for the best part of 40 minutes now. So do not blame the man at all.
Yeah, I think he is getting quite frustrated, but as you pointed out, Aaron, he's probably still going to leave this race with the championship lead. 99 points on the board between now and the end of this season, coming up on October the 13th here on Apex Racing TV. So even if he has to settle for P2, finishing behind Gabriel Berger in both of the races this evening, still think that's not too much to scoff at. I think he'll still be very happy with how things went for him here at Brands Hatch, as we have a fight going on with Damien Guy, who just got past Euler, who's dropped down like a rock in the past few moments. Had a move put on him by Sorensen, Stensrud, and Guy as well. So Euler has just been bleeding time like it's going out of style. Take a look at my live timing screen this time by to see what sort of lap time he set. The previous time he was in the 1-minute 29s. So this time by in the 1-minute 23. So I think there's some sort of major mistake that happened about... Yeah, that could be some major fuel saving that he's trying to do. Maybe goosed it on the throttle just a little bit that previous lap. Speaking of, not a whole lot of time left to go in this race. I believe we may be taking the white flag in just a couple of moments' time. But here's Euler. He was running all by his lonesome. That's heading through turn number 5, about to head through 6 right now before he goes into 7.
Yeah.
And a very similar mistake to what we saw earlier on in this race from Gabriel Berger. So a simple spin coming out of 6. The big thing with these SR10s is the change in weight distribution can really screw up these drivers. I've seen it before, especially at tracks like Bathurst, for instance, when you're going down the hill and just pretty much hanging on by the skin of your teeth in these radical SR10s. You go around a corner like turn 6 here at Brands Hatch, and considering the weird elevation changes and all the stuff going on that these drivers have to worry about, very easy to lose the back end. One driver that hasn't lost the back end, he's lost just about nothing so far, is Christoph Lipp. Has lost a little bit of time, though, between James himself and James Berry, as that gap is about 1.3, teetering around that 1.3, 1.2 second barrier. However, as they're coming to take the checkered flag in just a couple of moments' time, I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be too little, too late for James Berry, who I believe would still leave this race with the championship lead as a result of him finishing in front of Andreas Friedrich. However, because of this man's performances, it's going to be a 3-horse race. Rounding his way around the final corner, the German of Christoph Lipp in the 704 Lipp Train racing car. He is going to be leading that Lipp Train across that start-finish line to go 2 for 2 at Brands Hatch. He won the sprint and he wins the feature as well. Christoph Lipp is victorious under the lights here at Brands Hatch. James Berry going to finish 1.5 seconds behind him, P2 when everything was said and done, with another championship contender in the form of Andreas Friedrich rounding at your podium in third. And as the rest of the field comes across the start-finish line, we're waiting for Gabriel Berger and Adam Locke to come across in 8th and 9th. Those two going to finish P1 and P2 in the M category. Gabriel Berger pulling off the double in that class as well. So as the field crosses the line to end 45 minutes of racing action here from the 10th round of the Radical European Championship, Aaron, we were expecting a little bit of drama. We got that. We got a huge pileup and a major accident at the very start. But considering the challenge of this track with 9 corners that are pretty much completely different from the other ones before it, these drivers kept it fairly clean when everything was said and done.
Yeah, we only had a few retirements, and to be fair, those retirements were more just, oh, I give up, more than, oh no, I've crashed. So, yeah, it was surprisingly clean, especially in that second race. It was, I don't think really any big incidents happened between two drivers. The only ones we saw were from Berger, and you know, that was just a mistake all by himself. So it was very good racing from everyone today, very respectable, and yeah, just a really solid race here at Brands Hatch. Probably not the most, you know, crazy and wheel-to-wheel action one we've had this season, but it was just an average race, and one that's really spiced up the both championships, in fact. So really, really good to head into the last few rounds with a good, you know, championship battle in the AMs and the pros.
And here are the results from this feature race. Christoph Lipp goes for the double and wins both of the races this evening over James Berry, who finished second in both of the races this evening as well. That's going to be Andreas Friedrich rounding out your podium in third. Dennis Girac-Apollo is going to be finishing this race in fourth. Matt Gestrombakken going to finish in fifth, and we have Kim Andrean Björklund in sixth. Kettle Larson in P7. Gabriel Berger going to be the top finishing AM driver in P8. Adam Locke finishes right behind in ninth. Gordon Haug is going to round out your top 10. That's going to be Alexander Scoret, Jorge Gonzaga, Sally Reitinen, Lasse Sorensen, and Gunnar Stenstrud rounding out the top 15. Damian Gee going to finish right behind in P16. Tom Mueller in 17th. Stefan Mellis in 18th. Menno de Greve, who got involved in that very strange looking first race incident, he's going to finish down 19th. Guy Robertson in 20th. Dorian Lievre in 21st. And Craig Gregory, one of the only retirements from this feature race, he's going to end the race down in 22nd, 20 laps down. And those are the results from this 45-minute long feature race. And Aaron, we've got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. I believe both the winners in the pro category and the AM category. Who do you like to have a chat with?
I think it's just common courtesy at this point to have a chat to Christoph Lipp, and well, shockingly, there's not really too much to say, Christoph. It was just a very textbook drive from you in both races. Got the pole, led, I think, nearly every single lap, and it was just very clean and very good for you, and surely that must feel good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm happy that I got through the race, or both races, without a mistake this time. Yeah, I was a bit nervous which kind of mistake I will do today, but yeah, luckily I got through, and yeah, with a good result.
Yeah, definitely the best result you could have asked for, of course, and well, it's kind of brought you back into the championship fight with only a few rounds to go. I know you're a little bit off the top of the championship, but it's still on. Do you think you can still go for it? Do you think it's something that's still possible with the amount of rounds that are left?
I don't know exactly how much points it is, but honestly, it will be really difficult because both James and Andreas are super fast. Will not be always like today, and even if I win and they have P2 and P3, I think it's enough for them. So I have to wait for mistakes this time from my mates, and then let's see.
Yeah, definitely. And we were talking about it earlier. The last round of the season is going to be the Nordschleife. So, we've got a couple rounds in between that. I think the next round that we've got is Spa, the new Spa as well. And have you tried out the new rescanned version of Spa yet? And if so, how are you feeling towards that next race?
No, I haven't tried it yet. So I like Spa very much. Let's see how it will be this season. I have no clue yet how is the draft, if they've changed something, because last season it was pretty strong. If there will be a lot of draft, then yeah, will be interesting. And Spa and the same in the Nordschleife, but honestly, Nordschleife I still have to practice a lot to get to pace. So let's see.
Yeah, we will see indeed. Well, surprisingly, there's not really much else to ask, to be fair. It was just a very textbook victory and a good day for you. So we'll let you go and celebrate a good day. But before we do, anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, congrats to you guys in the booth commentating. I always like to watch the races afterwards, and I like to listen to you doing a great job. So thanks for that, and all of the other people who are doing the organizational part. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much for the kind words. And we'll see you in about 3 weeks' time at Spa. And good luck for that race.
Thanks. See you.
That was Christoph Lipp, who ends this race in P1, also ended the sprint race in P1. And now the driver that he had to trade blows with was James Berry, and we're going to have a chat with him towards the end of this broadcast. James, welcome into the commentary booth. P2 in both of the races. Christoph just had the edge on you a little bit throughout the two races this evening. Talk us through it here at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, for me, it was just a bit of a slog, just driving lap after lap, really quite difficult as a driver. Obviously, not too much happening in terms of racing. I was just trying to do my best pace all the time to see if I could stick with Christoph. And yeah, he just had that extra edge in the race, and then managed to stay in front of the guys behind. So for me, yeah, just a long race, but definitely happy with my pace and happy with the result.
I'm sure you're definitely very happy with the result, considering you finish in front of Andreas Friedrich in both of the races this evening. That, I believe, will give you the championship lead coming into the final two races of this season. Got to be happy about that part, though, can you?
Yeah, I'm in a good position now. Obviously, I'm still considering Christoph as just as much as of a challenger as Andreas. And we've got two tracks coming up now. We've got Spa and Nordschleife that are very unpredictable. So, anything can happen. But yeah, obviously I'm happy with the position that I'm in, so let's go for it, see what we can do.
Well, that's all you got to do at this point in the season. Just attack the final two races of the season, guns blazing. Spa, as you point out, as the next race of the season, was originally scheduled to be Sonoma. However, they did change it over the past few months, of Spa being the next race of the season. You mentioned those races are always chaotic. I've seen it in the officials, and I'm going to see that on full display on the Americas broadcast right after this European one on Apex. How do you think that race is going to be in about 3 weeks' time?
Yeah, as I said, a lot of people are fast at Spa. It's a track that kind of lots of drivers know very well, and there's a lot of slipstream in this car there, so anything can happen. I have no idea how fast I'm going to be there, to be honest. So let's just go for it. Let's see.
I've heard some drivers describe Radical SR10 races at Spa in the past as being a glorified crapshoot, and hopefully for your sakes, when it comes to that championship fight, you don't get the short end of the stick when it comes to that race. James Berry, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on the results this afternoon. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I'd shout out Christoph for once again the imperious pace that he showed today, and he's chasing this championship at the moment, so let's see what he can do as well. So. Right.
Alrighty, well there you go, James. Congratulations on the 2 second place runs, and excited to see you wherever it is in the not too distant future. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
And that was James Berry, who ends both of those races in second. And now, Aaron, we also have the M winner, Gabriel Berger, in the interview waiting area. Would you like to have a chat with him?
Yes, I would love to have a chat with Gabriel Berger. Well, welcome to the commentary booth, Gabriel. And well, it wasn't an easy race at all. In fact, it was quite difficult. But you somehow managed to still come away with the win at well, technically, what is a home track for you. So surely that must be a good feeling.
Yeah, it is good, and actually, I've been here quite a lot in real life, so this feels, till we get Thruxton at least, the closest to a home circuit on iRacing for me. But it helps to know it well because this was probably the closest race I think we've had so far. Just looking at our lap times, and Adam and I, our fastest laps are within 0.004 of a second of each other.
Yeah, I mean that really it doesn't surprise me, to be honest. You two were pretty much nose to tail that most of the race. There were a couple blips here and there, and well, I just have to ask, after that spin that you had, did you expect to stay ahead of Adam? Because I was a bit shocked that you came out ahead of him.
I'll be honest, I didn't expect not to hit the wall at that point. So, coming out of the pits at all was a bonus. And so the fact that I was ahead of Adam was about as much as I could ask for. I probably lost 3 or 4 seconds there, maybe even 5, and it was only about a second as he came in. So I was really surprised to see him behind me, and only just behind me.
Yeah, I think most of us were shocked that one, you kept it out of the wall, and the fact you were still ahead of him. So yeah, it was it made for a very close end to the race, and it was fantastically entertaining. And well, you managed to hold on for the victory in the end, and well, that's going to give you good spirits for next time out, which is going to be Spa. And well, of course, we got the rescanned Spa. Have you managed to have a drive around there yet, or you're going to be practicing it over the next few weeks?
I drove around there a little bit a few days ago in, I think, the Corvette series they're running this week. Noticed a few differences. There's a big curb on the inside of No Name now that wasn't there before, that spooked us when we first saw it. But we were just discussing between us, it's a much better passing track than this, so I think we're going to see a very different race.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It was rather difficult to overtake round here, where Spa is pretty much the exact opposite in every single way. So it should be a nice contrast to what we've had today. But congratulations on the victory that you managed to grab today. And well, before we let you go, anyone you want to give a mention or shout out to?
I think Adam today, because we did have a few side-by-side moments, and he kept it really clean all the way through both races. We've seen crashes in situations like that before, so for both of us to come away with no damage between us, I think was very good from both of us.
Yeah, I agree. Always be respectful to your fellow drivers, and they'll be respectful back. So good to see some driver kinship between you two. Well, thank you, Gabriel, for coming and speaking with us. Congratulations on your win, and see you in about 3 weeks' time.
Thank you. See you next time.
That was Gabriel Berger, who wins the race, both races from this evening in the AM category. A really impressive showing from him. So that was an interview with an AM winner. We had the interview from the pro winner, Christoph Lipp, earlier. And I think for one last chat, I'll bring in a driver who I haven't had a chance to have a chat with in a while. That being Dennis Kyriakopoulos. Dennis, welcome to the commentary booth. It was a hard-fought afternoon from your perspective, battling closely throughout the 45-man feature and the 15-minute long sprint. Talk us through the race from your perspective here at Brands Hatch.
Oh man, you can't imagine how tired I am, because as you said, I was really close to other cars during the whole race. I had pressure from behind. I had people in front of me. I was eager to stay within the draft, so it was a very exciting race.
I can imagine it was from your perspective, just seeing the battling all around. Is that giving you a faint idea as to what it's going to be like at Spa in a couple of weeks' time, or do you think that race is just going to be this cranked up to about 15?
Spa is, you know how it is. It's always the train, and a lot of strategy plays a role. The draft train is going to be massive, so we'll see. Anything can happen on this track, I think.
Yeah, Spa is usually I think I said that a driver in the past had described it as a glorified crapshoot, and after running a few spa races in the Radical SR10, I can kind of attest for that, but they're always exciting as well, and I'm sure that's definitely going to be the case. So coming into the final 2 races of this season, Spa and the Nordschleife both incredibly threatening for you drivers. I'll ask you which one you're looking forward to the most out of the final 2.
I definitely prefer Spa. Um, we'll see. The Nordschleife, it's not my forte. It's a very long track. I don't really like it. So we'll see.
We will see for sure. Dennis, congratulations on running a hard-fought afternoon here, or evening, just based off the fact that a lot of the drivers in this series are from Europe. Congratulations on the well results, and before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, shout out to all the regular drivers. They are like online friends. It's really nice to see them every race, and I enjoy battling with them.
Alrighty, well, there you go, Dennis. Congratulations on a well-fought afternoon. Excited to see you back out on the racetrack at Spa in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for joining us, man.
Bye-bye.
And that was Dennis Kyriakopoulos. And I think, Aaron, we have one more driver waiting in the interview waiting area. That, I believe, is Lasse Sorensen. Would you like to have a quick chat with him?
Yes, indeed we can. Would be a bit unfair if we didn't. To be fair, just leaving out one driver. So welcome to the booth, Sorensen. It was a pretty good start for you in that heat race. Got a podium and had some pretty good pace, but unfortunately in that feature race just didn't seem to go your way. So tell us how you're feeling after today.
Oh, I was quite happy with the start in the sprint race. This week have been quite difficult on a personal level, so I haven't had any practice. So I did some practice laps today only and had the pace at all. So I thought I was far behind, but I found some pace in the practice before qualifying. I also put in a quite decent lap in the qualifying, and I found the pace in the race. So I had no struggle keeping up behind Barry. I was thinking of going past him on the second last lap, but I was happy with P3 and didn't want to ruin any of our race. And it kept on in the feature race, but I needed a coffee break in the pit. So I crossed the line. So I hadn't read the rules. So I messed it up completely on my own today.
Yeah, it's a simple mistake that we've all made at some point in our iRacing career, and we will continue to do so throughout the foreseeable future. But of course, we hope everything in your personal life is okay. And well, I mean, no matter what was happening out there, it's seemed to be absolutely you spot on in the race. You had some really good pace and could have probably come away with a podium in that feature race had the pit line been a little bit further forward, and maybe it would have worked out in the end. But
yeah,
either
I
way,
think so, because I saved so much fuel. So I think I would have gained until P2 at least. So that was bad, but I'm perfectly fine with that. It was a good racing day.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, everyone's gonna be happy with a podium in the end. But heading into 3 weeks' time, of course, we've asked this question to a couple of other people tonight. It's the new rescan Spa. Have you managed to try it out yet, or is it going to be something that you're gonna give a go over the next few weeks?
I had 4 laps with P-Cup there, but it seems nice. It's very smooth. It's a lot better than it was previously, so I think it's going to be good racing there. A lot of passes, of course, because of the draft, but I think it's going to be a clean and good race with a lot of space, so I look forward to that.
Yeah, definitely should be entertaining as Spa just always is, no matter in what car, what weather. It's just always just mayhem. So that should be good fun. And well, congratulations on getting a good podium in that first race. And well, hopefully you can have an even better time in Spa in 3 weeks' time. But before we let you go, Sorensen, anyone you want to give a mention or shout out to?
Yeah, you guys for a broadcast as always. Also the organizer of Radical SimRacing, the team RJL Coatens, and also our main sponsor, Sande Trafikkskole.
Oh, thank you very much, Sorensen, and congratulations on that podium, and good luck for Spa next time out.
Thank you so much.
That was Lasse Sorensen, I think the final driver that we're going to have a chat with on this broadcast, Aaron. It was a hard-fought day of racing action. 2 races which didn't feature a lot of chaos. However, they featured a lot of hard side-by-side battling, drivers scrapping and clawing for every single position they can. Last thoughts on this race, and what are your thoughts heading into Spa in about 3 weeks?
Yeah, it was, like I said before, just a really good, solid, average race. It provided some decent action here and there, has spiced up the championships a little bit, and I think Spa's going to be just mental, to be honest, especially this newer, wider, resurfaced version. It's going to be chaos, I think, and it should be good fun. Good, it should just, everything about it should be good. The strategy should be really intriguing. It's a nice long lap time where fuel saving can really gain or lose you a huge amount of time. The slipstream's going to be a huge factor. Going wheel to wheel there's super easy as well. I think it's just going to be a good race, as Spa usually always is.
Oh, it is going to be a fantastic show. I've done my fair share of Spa official races here from the Radical Esports Cup, which airs every single Friday here on Apex Racing TV. Once this upcoming season starts, we have 13 weeks of Radical SR10 action from the officials, and we also have the final 2 races from the Radical SimRacing European Championship here in 2024, and also coming up later on today is the action from the Radical Americas Championship. We've got 2 close championship fights. Some tempers came out last time out. Add Phillip Island with that series, and I'm sure tempers are going to be flaring at Brands Hatch as well. So if you're in the mood for some more Radical SR10 action here on Apex Racing TV, remember to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell as well, so you never miss a thing, and don't miss the action from the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship, where myself, Mr. Charles Bushell, and Mr. Joshua Wilkie will be there to bring you all of the action from the 15-minute sprint and 45-minute long feature. But I think for this broadcast today, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, and Louis Sarai doing a fine job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.